We're here on your stand at the Auto Legend show here. Your company, Fiskens, obviously all about cars. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the cars that you have here today?
Sure, with pleasure. We're a London-based company and we specialise in the sale of sports and sports racing cars, really with an emphasis, where possible, of cars that actually competed at the 24 Hours of Le Mans or other great sports and sports and Grand Prix races in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, but also back to the great pre-war era from the 1920s and 30s as well. The oldest car we have today is from 1926, which is this Bentley here, which is a 1926 Le Mans 3-litre super sport, 100 mile an hour. It's a car that ran with the Bentley team at Le Mans, driven by a hero called Thomas Scrap Thistlethwaite, which is quite a mouthful, Thistlethwaite, and his co-driver Colonel Clive Gallup. And this car ran as high as third at Le Mans 1926, and it's the only car that Bentley fielded with the 100 mile an hour super sport short chassis. So it's a very special car. That's our oldest Le Mans car. It's a car, it's not actually for sale from our stand. It's a car that we acquired for a client for his Le Mans car themed collection.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so following on from the Bentley here, could you perhaps take us around the rest of the collection so we get a bit of an idea what else you've got to offer?
Sure. Here we have a 1961 Aston Martin Db4 Gt. Aston won Le Mans in 1959 with their DBR1, but Aston sold cars that you could buy and use on the road, and they also sold cars you could buy to race. And the DB4 GT was a production-built GT race car. It was built to race against the Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, which was its main competitor. This was Aston's great GT car. Super light, the Superleggera, which was a design concept designed in Italy with very, very thin metal frame with a lightweight aluminium body. Typical Aston Martin, big 6-cylinder engine, over 3 litres, twin spark plugs for every cylinder, and a twin cam engine. This particular car didn't race at Le Mans, though sister cars did, of the DB4 GT model. This car was delivered through a famous Swiss racing company called Garage Filippinetti, and it raced in Switzerland. This car spent all its life in Switzerland. It raced, it rallied, it did hill climbs, and we had the privilege of bringing the car out of Switzerland to the show, for the Le Mans car show, and the car is available. It's for sale from our company. Offers in the region of £1.35 million sterling if you want an original DB4 GT from Switzerland. If we move from the DB4 GT, we go now to the BMW, which is a German car, pre-war. BMW entered these cars not to win the Le Mans 24 Hours outright, but to win the 2-litre class, which they did pre-war. The 328 BMW, as well as being a class winner at Le Mans, was also an outright winner of the Mille Miglia race in 1940. This particular example is a competition car. It's got these drilled out, what they call the peppercorn wheels, and this particular example raced in Germany and in Europe pre-war, then went back out after the war to the States where it raced. It's in very, very original order. It's for sale from our company. It offers on £450,000 sterling for an original 328 BMW.
So quite a bargain. Compared
to the Aston Martin, and a car that you can still race in the Le Mans Classic race. They have the Le Mans Classic race every 2 years. You could be, they had next year, it's a resting year, but you could have this car on the track at the Le Mans Classic in 2 years' time. You could also enter this car on the Mille Miglia retrospective, and we drove the car here from our showroom in Kensington, and it's just fabulous. You can't believe this is a car from 1937. It drives like a car from the 1950s or 60s. It's lovely on the road, great engine. In fact, post-war, Bristol, the English company Bristol, took the design for the pre-war 328 BMW engine as war reparation, as something to pay back pay back the British nation for the trouble between 1939 and 45. And the Bristol engine, which was based on this engine, became one of the most successful power plants in a variety of cars in the 50s and 60s. The AC Ace Bristol, to name just one. So lovely engine, way ahead of its time, and a Le Mans class winner, in period, as well as a Mille Miglia winner.
Wow, incredible.
To the back here, staying
here?
on a German theme, Porsche 910. Again, a car that was destined to win its class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but a car that was also very usable for hill climbs and rallies. This particular car did the Targa Florio, which was a wonderful event on the road, the closed roads around the island of Sicily. And this particular car was driven by a great British driver called Vic Elford as a Porsche factory race car in period. For the Targa Florio, the roof section here is a removable roof. So the driver's head would be open, which was better for hot, close racing. But for Le Mans, and we're showing it in Le Mans spec today, we have the roof panel filled in there for streamlining going down that Mulsanne straight. So an original Porsche 910.
And sorry, the year that this one was
1967. 1967.
It still looks. I mean, it looks so modern for even today's sort of the designs of the cars we see today.
Very
I
much
mean,
so.
1967. That's incredible, isn't it?
Isn't it? I mean, just way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But Porsche made a very, very sexy looking car. But underneath this car, typical Porsche, flat six engine, 2 litres. But strong. Yeah. These cars were strong. This is a sports racing prototype you could drive on the road, and equally as beautiful as some of the Italian cars of the period, but very, very strong and very well engineered, and a successful car in period, and a successful car in historic racing, and an easy car, to drive and operate and have a lot of fun with.
Brilliant. You just can't believe 1967, such a long time ago, and it's just looks so fresh still. Doesn't it just?
Doesn't it just? But we're here in Chelsea and moving on to the next car.
Yeah.
When I think of Chelsea, I think, well, what's near Chelsea? Well, there's a place called Brixton in South London. Not many people know, but the Allard company built their cars in Brixton in South London. Mm. So not more than 3 miles away from this, Sidney Allard down in Brixton built his Allards. They were really ahead of their time. It was the first time anyone had thought to take a simple British chassis and put a big American V8 in it. Sidney Allard put in a big Cadillac V8 in this car, the J2X, and his Allards in the 1950s raced against Aston Martin, they raced against Jaguar, they were raced against Ferrari. The Allard was a very successful, almost not forgotten to those that know their motor racing history, but Allards ceased production in the late 50s, early 60s. So they've been, to a modern generation, a little forgotten, but they were very successful in period. And this car has got a wonderful competition history. Allards ran at Le Mans, they ran in hill climbs, they ran at Goodwood, they ran everywhere, and they were great cars. Quite primitive in its chassis design, but remarkably effective. Very, very powerful car.
It's stunning, isn't it?
It is stunning. And of course, out of Allard came the idea that I'm sure that Carroll Shelby had, because Allards were sent to the States new, and I think this helped inspire Carroll Shelby's idea to take the AC Ace, which at one time the AC Ace was running with the AC little 2 litre, or the Bristol engine, which was based on the BMW engine that we spoke of earlier. And it was like, well, why don't I put a big American V8 in a cool, well-handling British car? That's what he'd seen with Allard. That's what he did with the AC Ace Bristol, which gave us the AC Cobra, which went on to be one of the great legends. So the Allard is the sort of grandfather or the father of that concept, and a hugely successful car.
It's how things evolve, isn't it?
How things evolve, exactly.
Yeah, amazing.
And in historic racing, very competitive, very usable, but a fraction of the price. I mean, a Jaguar C-Type now is a £2.5 or a £3 million car. J2X Allard like this, £450,000. So a lot of bang for the buck.
Oh, very good. So We've done the BMW.
We've done the BMW.
I think it's just the Ferraris then.
We've got the Ferraris
Yes.
at the front here. And we've kept our Exotica.
Yes.
To
Would you say the best till last?
Well,
or-
not necessarily the
No?
best. I think they're all fabulous cars in context of where they are in history. We spoke about the DB4 GT Aston Martin. Well, this was its great rival.
Yes, very similar line,
Yeah,
isn't it?
the 1960 250 short wheelbase Berlinetta competition. 3 litres of wonderful V12 Ferrari. This particular car was sold to a British privateer called Graham Whitehead, who ran the car at Lamorne 1960 with a guy called Taylor, who was a Lotus Formula One driver. Cruelly, fate dictated, as it can at Le Mans, that they failed to finish. I've driven the 24 Hours of Le Mans myself 4 times, and out of 4 goes myself, I finished twice. So poor Graham Whitehead, who'd had a lot of success with Aston in the DBR1, went to Ferrari and was running as high as 3rd overall when they had a mechanical problem with I think they've been riding the clutch, coming out the pits a bit hot, and they apparently the clutch went in something like the 23rd hour. So to lose a podium at Le Mans, it was cruel fate. But the car continued after that. It raced at Spa with success. It raced at Montclair. And we're really privileged to have it on our stand here today. Yeah, very.
The car failing on the 23rd hour
23rd
just must
hour,
be
yeah.
the worst nightmare.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, though.
Cruel luck, but to finish first you have to finish, and Le Mans takes no prisoners.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt that.
So moving on from the 250 short wheelbase, for Ferrari again continuing to supply a car that could be used by the general public, guys who wanted to buy a car and go racing. Continued to develop the 250 into the 275 model, which gave 5 gears instead of 4 gears, an engine similar to the V12 of the 3-litre cars, but capacity taken out to 3.3 litres. As I said, 5-speed, but with 6 carburetors, with a 6-carburetor V12 engine, and more thought by the mid-60s was given to aerodynamics. So this was really the beginning of a car which some thought was given to a little lift on the tail there to stop the cars lifting at high speed.
Downforce, yeah.
This is what they call the short nose model, which again some thought was given to stopping the front of the car lifting at speed. Ferrari then went on and took this model and put a longer nose on it for 66, but this is a 65 model, so this is the first of the 275 GTBCs. 6 carburetors, short nose with a little lights built in there for getting those apexes of the corners at night. A very successful car. They only built 11 for competition use in 65.
So would you say with the Le Mans
with Le Mans and racing in
process.
mind? This was built for you you could take it and race it whatever you wanted to. This particular car did hill climbs as well as races, and they built 11 for clients in 65 and they built 12 for clients in 66. The GTBC model was more often than not a class winner in the period. Very, very successful car. Very successful car.
I know I keep going back to, but 1960s car. I mean, look at it. It still looks so modern. I mean, you can see how it's developed to the cars we have today. I mean, those rounded lines. It's just.
Well,
glorious.
when a masterpiece was created, it makes it hard
You've got that template, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it makes it hard for people to improve, and I feel for modern designers because there's so much, there's so much good stuff being done before. How do you improve? How do you make something better? Well, you buy the original, and the job's done.
An idea of cost on something like this?
In the sort of £2.5 million region.
Wow.
But you don't have to buy the GTBC if you want a 275, because of course Ferrari sold these cars for the road. If you want a car with a steel body, a production car, you can buy a good 275 GTB for well under £1 million, more in the £500,000 region.
Slightly more affordable.
Slightly more affordable. Slightly more affordable.
And
here we have XGT2. Now XGT2 sounds like a rocket. It looks like a rocket. It goes like a rocket. Ferrari, Mr. Ferrari led Mr. Ford a merry dance in the 60s. thinking that he was going to sell his company, that Ferrari would be bought by Mr. Ford. They were going to call the racing cars Ferrari Fords, and the road cars were going to be sold as Ford Ferraris. It was actually a game that Ferrari played, because he never would have sold his company to an American. And in fact, he wanted to build up interest from the Agnelli family who owned Fiat. Ford was really pissed off when he didn't buy Ferrari, and he determined that he would have a car built that could kick Ferrari's ass.
Right.
It was the GT40. It was run by Carroll Shelby, who had great success with, as we described before, the AC Bristol with the big Ford V8 in it. And the GT40, he came to England to a guy called Eric Broadley, who designed a wonderful mid-engine coupe, and they built the first of the cars which became the legendary GT40. The GT40 was not successful at Le Mans 64. They had mechanical problems. It was not successful at Le Mans 65. They had mechanical problems. There was a big meeting at Ford's. The budget was decreed that there was no budget. Whatever it cost to win, it was going to be done for 66. Everyone was gathered. Leo Baby, the head of the competition department, Carroll Shelby, Alan Mann, various other guys who were going to run these cars. Mr. Ford gave them all a card with his name on the front, and on the back, handwritten, were the words, "You better win." They went to Le Mans 66 with 8 of these Mark II GT40s, the most expensive racing car built to that date, and they won 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
This car was driven at Le Mans 66 by the great late Graham Hill and Brian Muir. It led Le Mans for 9 hours before it had a suspension problem which they couldn't fix, and he had to park the car. The car then ran Le Mans in 69 as well. It was bought by a guy in America who was going to race the car. He took this car and a whole team of parts and things, and he never got around doing anything. The cars got put in the back of his garage, gathered dust until 3 years ago when this car came out of hiding. It's just been restored. It's been showed in England and around Europe for the first time. It was taken back to Le Mans to be exhibited there for the Le Mans Classic a few weeks ago, and it's the first time the car had been back to Le Mans since 1966. It's one of the most important GT40s, and for this wonderful show here today, of course we had to bring it.
What a
So
privilege.
yeah,
What a privilege.
yeah.
It is stunning, isn't it?
It's really quite special.
Wow. I mean, so Mr. Ford must have been a bit upset when all that those problems were going on in the
but I think Mr.
66
Ford had a very good Le Mans when he saw his cars come across the line 1, 2 and 3.
It's worth every penny.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But just to show there's no hard feelings and we're not too partisan on the Ford side here, last but least, or not least on our stand, we have a Ferrari. We have a Ferrari Testarossa, which is this car here. This is a 1958 Ferrari pontoon fender Testarossa. It's one of 21 cars that were built to win Le Mans. Ferrari won Le Mans in 58 and 59 and 60. Ferrari had unbelievable success at Le Mans in the 1950s. Not only did Ferraris sound beautiful with that lovely V12 engine, but my God, Ferraris look beautiful. He used a variety of companies to build his bodies. For the race cars, he used a company in Modena called Scaglietti, and this is a Scaglietti-bodied 250 pontoon Testarossa. This car didn't race at Le Mans in period. It was actually sold to an American privateer. Everyone thinks all Ferraris are red. This car was painted blue. This is the original blue, and it has to be one of the most beautiful cars ever created by the hand of man. And and it's from a very generous and kind British collection or British collector who's been kind enough to allow us to bring the car here to support the hospital and the Chelsea pensioners. So it's also one of the most valuable cars in the world. It's always hard to say what anything's worth, but it could be £10 million, it could be 20, it could be any amount of money.
Or is it just priceless?
It could be, absolutely.
Well, we're very privileged to be able to see all these cars.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for walking around with me here today, and I hope your viewers enjoy the show.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.